Hello, this is Heretic Prince. I saw this article by CBR saying Dungeons & Dragons find 5 tips for role-playing better at the table. I did a quick read-through of these tips and thought that they would be fun to talk about, so that's what I'm going to do. Roleplay can be intimidating if you're new, and there is a common thought that role-playing requires skill in acting and narration, and is something that, unless you are a professional, should not be attempted. However, any player will tell you that this is not the case. So here are 5 tips to help you to be a better role player. No, believe me, you don't have to be a professional. Literally anybody can do it. You just put yourself in the mind of your character and have fun with it. It's liberating to do things that you wouldn't do. You're doing things that this character would do. Now, of course, those words have a stigma to them, which I'll go into a little bit later. Yet the thing that I would suggest is something that is hard for new people to do, or well, hard for people to do in general, and that is listen to criticism. If the DM tells you that you're metagaming a little bit cause one character did or said something that's too far away for you to know about, but then suddenly you want to get involved in that action, and so you just walk over to them. Yeah, if they say, hey, your character doesn't know that, don't take that as some kind of barb, it's just the truth. And then in my experience, most DMs will find an excuse for you if you really want to get over there and participate in whatever's going on. Just believe me, just start having fun with it, and everybody at the table will help you, because D&D is a group game, and the more people having fun, the more fun that is had. You want everyone to enjoy themselves, because that just makes things funner for you. It's a win-win at all times. So go nuts. Yeah, do cool stuff. Now the first tip is to keep it simple, which I completely agree with. I really like this line here. To make it easier, try to create the character to be like yourself so that it's easier to slip into the mindset. That said, I have to warn you, do not self-insert. Do not become attached to your character, think that your character is you, and if one of the other players, if their character doesn't like your character, it's not some kind of personal insult. They're not actually after you. Gosh. You know, I would love to invite my D&D group in on this conversation, because I'm pretty sure in my current campaign at least 3 of their characters don't like my character. Both of my main characters, I'm playing in 2 campaigns, are selfish and self-serving. Like I said, play what you know. Play someone like yourself. If you're going to get upset because an NPC doesn't like your character, or another player character doesn't like your character, you're not going to have a good time. Don't take it personal, because even though those player characters don't like my character, we're still sitting at the table, drinking beer, laughing at each other, having a good time. My rogue was literally picked up, manhandled, tied to a chair, and left there all night because of what my group calls the Alabaster Throne incident. One day maybe I'll go a little bit further into that. However, I will give an example of where I messed up with this. I tried to create a lawful evil character, and one of the things I'm finding a hard time struggling with is with my own moral compass. You know, I can understand being selfish or a jerk, being arrogant, but there's things that this character should do as a lawful evil person that I can't consolidate in my mind, because believe it or not, I do have a moral line where even though the bar is really low, there are things that I just find to be reprehensible, and I have a hard time bringing my character to do those things. Luckily, my DM is very understanding, and we're both kind of working to pull my character back a little bit to a little bit more of a kinder, or some kind of moral code that he works by that still lets him be mean, but won't cross a certain border. But that goes back into what I was initially saying. Remember that your character is not you, even if you make them similar to yourself. I highly suggest making them similar to yourself, so that way you play to your strengths. You're playing what you know. And also play to what you find to be fun. if you're into the combat of D&D, it's going to be a little bit rougher to play some kind of mastermind who doesn't have a great deal of strength or no powerful spells. You're going to get bored real quick. If you can do a voice, then do one, but don't feel pressured to try. I had a character that I played for a very short time. He was an older gentleman, and so I tried to make my voice older, but what I found myself doing was constantly slipping out of it. And so I just stopped doing it. I just stopped making the voice. And so it's okay if you don't want to make a special voice for your character. At this point, all my characters have this voice. I just found it to be too tedious to keep up with. So, once again, it's got to be said, not everybody's Matthew Mercer. So, yeah, if doing a voice isn't fun for you, then don't do it. We know who you are. We can see you at the table. Now, tip number 2 is a realistic backstory. This may upset some of you. As the article says here, it is better to be somewhat realistic. Creating a character who fought their way through a citadel and killed 1,000 soldiers will seem foolish if they die to a goblin in the first 5 minutes. Making your character some kind of ultra superstar warrior will seem really awkward really fast when you get into battle in dangerous situations, especially at lower levels when everything is stronger than you. It really shatters the suspension of disbelief when you're supposed to be so incredibly powerful, but yet everything else around you is stronger than you. Also, it kinda takes away from the hero's journey where you start out as someone who has to be very careful, tiptoe, and you're trying to build up your strength when you already believe that you're the strongest to begin with. In fact, I believe in both of my main characters, their backstories, they get their butts kicked. My rogue barely escapes with his life, and my warlock, he barely escapes with his life, just a different situation. He was surrounded by demons, and he didn't defeat any of them. He's not quite sure how he survived it, which that's in our current campaign, that's slowly being revealed. And no, it wasn't because he summoned up Eldritch Blast and started, it turned into heavy arms and just started shooting everybody. No, it was much more insidious than that. The more grounded the opening, the more you will have to build on as the game progresses. It's all about having a good starting point to base your reactions on. Yeah, a good backstory will help guide you in what decisions your character will make. If your character's village was destroyed by some kind of raid and they became a fighter or a knight who holds a big shield to defend the helpless, that would inform why when they see a weak or powerless person being picked on or bullied or what have you, why they want to immediately jump to the defense of that person. Well, there you go. You're making a decision informed on your history. I know I keep talking about my characters, but the heck with it, it's my video. My rogue's backstory of having been betrayed for money informs why he's so selfish. He thinks money rules everything. He thinks there is no such thing as loyalty or love. He thinks that anybody will sell out anybody for gold, and that justifies his very selfish behavior. In fact, his whole goal is to get rich enough to where he never has to work again. He wants to become so rich that he believes he can buy and pay for anybody who would stand in the way of anything that he wants to, because everybody is ruled by gold. That's his belief, and that's all informed by one moment where he was betrayed, sold out for a small bag of gold. The third tip is talk to your party. Cannot endorse this enough. Becoming a better role player is easier when you work with your party. One way to include them is to talk to your party as the character. For example, the party finds themselves in a forest and the dwarven ranger has spotted something. Rather than ask the DM what the dwarf saw, ask the player. Having another player talk to you allows you to react as your character. It connects you to the adventure. This kind of goes into what I was talking about before. The DM tells the ranger, hey, you see an owlbear off in the distance. Well, since the DM said that out loud to the ranger, of course everybody knows it. All the players know it. And then if somebody up and says, oh, well, I'm going to sneak up and see what the owlbear is doing, it's like, you're not aware of it, man. You don't know that the owlbear is there. The ranger knows. And then the ranger has to tell everybody. And if depending on how pedantic the DM wants to be, they can make the ranger roll stealth or something to try to be quiet enough while telling the others that the owlbear doesn't hear him or what have you. But yeah, this is a great opportunity to have a little bit of a quiet whisper role play. I mean, how are the other players going to react to an owlbear being there? I'm still new enough to where I don't know how powerful owlbears are. But let's imagine that it's some kind of dangerous creature. Let's go crazy here and say that there's a lich out there, right? Well, maybe one of the player characters is scared to death of liches. Maybe they're scared of the undead. Now, that's going to create some kind of a conflict amongst the players as to whether they go after this thing or they try to walk around it. Talking between characters is also great for creating a better group dynamic and help others to improve their own characters. The more your characters speak to each other, the more their relationships will grow. This will also allow you to naturally create aspects of your character's personality and the relationships that the character has. It might be awkward at first. It is. It is. It's really weird whenever you're talking to somebody that you've known since high school as if you don't know who they are. And it feels like you're... honestly, it feels like you're kids playing with, your little Transformers or something like that again. And so you pretend to be Starscream and your friend is pretending to be Megatron. But, hey, it's good not to grow up sometimes, I guess. It might be awkward at first, but the more you stick with it, the easier it will become, and that's true as well. While I am not the most experienced D&D player, I spent a very long time, years, on a role-playing server of a very popular MMORPG. And that's where I cut my teeth, and believe me, I made all the mistakes. I self-inserted myself in my character. I got upset whenever people didn't like my character. I let my character know things that there's no way that they would know. I made all the mistakes, and that's how I intimately know these mistakes. It seems to me like, for the most part, or at least with my D&D group, they're very gentle, or at least humorous, about reminding you like, hey, you're messing up, my man. The next tip is, and this is a doozy, give your character flaws. No Rey Skywalkers up in here. Giving your character flaws can create an interesting character and also very interesting group dynamics, but far too often, people use their flaws as a reason to troll or grief the other players. You don't want to go into that realm. Like I was saying before, there's that infamous saying, well, it's what my character would do. Well, your character's ruining the fun for the rest of us. And so, I try to keep a simple rule. If I'm going to do something that's going to be negative for the rest of the party, because I honestly believe my character would do this at this moment, I try to think, how can I make this moment fun or funny for the rest of the group? How can I make sure that what my rogue, who's a selfish prick, what he's about to do will bite him in the ass? If he's going to become the party's villain for a moment, I want my party to win. I want the party to defeat my rogue, because it's going to be a fun moment for everybody. It's a fun moment for me because I got to do what I wanted to do, and it's a fun moment for the party because they got to kick my ass. And I have to be grateful to the party I play with and the friends I play with. Whenever I first started, I was really starting to slide into that, well, it's what my character would do, but they were patient with me and let me learn with them. And so now I try to be on the lookout for those moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm being a jerk, but it's going to create a funny moment, and it's not going to permanently hurt the party. They're going to be fine after this. With my warlock, I think I'm kind of pushing that boundary again, but he is an evil person, so we'll see what happens there. But anyway, back to the article. Role-playing is easier if your character is realistic, and part of realism is having flaws, making mistakes on how we grow, and part of realism is having flaws. Making mistakes is how we grow, and it's the same for your character. Giving your character flaws is a great way to help progress your role-playing and make the game more interesting. A good example would be having a character who can be impulsive when it comes to danger. And here's the important thing about flaws, ladies and gentlemen. It gives your character something to overcome. The selfish rogue maybe eventually learns that being selfish, he's hurting his friends, and starts to slowly overcome it. A warlock who's always relied on themselves and their pack to get by slowly learns that people can be trusted as they continue further with the party, such as in the case of my celestial warlock, who's actually a bad person, is slowly learning the benefits of being good to people as he's healing them, and it's slowly drawing him away from his more dastardly deeds. When it comes to role-playing, this means occasionally doing something that you know is a bad idea. Once again, bring up the alabaster throne incident. Running headlong into a threat might be a mistake, but part of role-playing is experiencing the world as the character. However, it's important to make sure that your actions won't have a massive negative effect on the party. That's what I was just saying. One way to counter this is to make the party aware and have them react to you. Having another player restrain yours can be a great character building moment for both players. This is true. My rogue is actually becoming really good friends with our paladin because the paladin is constantly watching his back, and the rogue is aware that the paladin is watching his back, and so they oftentimes in combat they fight in tandem beside each other. The paladin's making sure the rogue doesn't do anything dumb, and the rogue is looking out for him a little bit because of that. Believe me, they still get into their little tiffs. I think in one of our last sessions, he picked me up by the throat because, we were talking about rescuing somebody, and my rogue said, "I don't understand how that's going to get me rich." And the paladin wasn't very happy that I said that. And the last tip, talking it through. It is a good idea to talk about what your character is thinking and feeling at any moment. Sometimes you can say it out loud, sometimes you can simply think about it. Thinking about how your character might feel in any situation gives you a better connection to them and allows you to consider how to react properly. This will, in turn, give you some better insight into what your character might say when they get the opportunity. Whenever I first started reading this, I thought that it was saying that you should be announcing out loud to the party what your character is thinking, and I'm like, well, unless your party is full of people who can read your mind, they wouldn't know that. But however, this is why I think it's a good idea for the DM to kind of go around the table, like right in the middle of whatever's going on, the action, the discussion, and just point to each character and be like, what are you doing right now? Like, are you looking up, looking down? Are you fiddling your fingers? That gives you a chance to non-verbally communicate to the party what your character is saying. Like, my character is, he's looking down and seems very disengaged from the conversation. Or he seems to be looking around at everybody's coin purses. It gives everybody an opportunity to understand the environment, what's happening, and how to properly react or take advantage of it. It also gives you all the players a chance to understand whenever a character is being out of character for that character. Like if a usually boisterous dwarf is suddenly being very quiet, something might be bothering that character, and it will give an opportunity for the player characters that are more friendly towards that character to ask, what's going on? Are you okay? Also, it might give some insight on if the character does something really strange in the next few moments. It's like, oh, that's why they were behaving that way. Talking and thinking through your character's thoughts and feelings has the added benefit of helping you focus on the game. D&D games can last a long time. Oh my god, can they? And it's easy to find yourself getting distracted. However, if you do find this happening, then work that into your character. How would your paladin feel if they suddenly realize they don't know what's happening? Two things I can only add to this, and unfortunately I've broken these rules myself, is whenever something is actually happening in the game, you're not just talking about your days as people, you're actually engaged in playing the game, you might want to put the phone down. And you might want to pick up a pen and start writing some of these notes down and find a way to organize it, because it's embarrassing whenever another character asks me about a book I had on me. And I'm like, I don't remember what book, I don't remember how many books, I don't remember what book that was. and I didn't write it down. Why? Because I wasn't paying attention. And so, yeah, and that brings the game to a grinding halt. So I understand, make the game fun, right? Have fun playing the game, but I would strongly suggest taking some notes, or at least not letting yourself get distracted if you can help it. Becoming a better role player is all about taking small steps and working with your party. It is a learning process, but it is a fun one. Everyone has the capability to be a great role player in their own right, and hopefully these tips will help you. Remember that Dungeons & Dragons is a social game first and foremost. So talk to your party and see what they thought worked and what didn't, and use that to help improve your role-playing journey. And finally, remember to have fun on your adventure. Well, I mean, in the end, it's all about fun. And that last bit there, be prepared to listen to a little bit of criticism. It's a social game, and if you're honestly doing something that's hampering everybody else's fun, you want to know about it, because that's just not making things a great time. And well then, with all that said, I'll just ask, what do you think of those tips? Anything you would like to add? Do you have any tips of your own you would like to add in the comments? And always remember, folks, the people you're playing D&D with should be starting to drift into being your friends. Even if they're random people you found on what have you, Roll20, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them, and like they say, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. Have fun, work towards making the game more fun. I am so glad that my friends from back in high school invited me to play with them, because it has been an absolute blast. And well, as always, thank you very much for listening, and you have a great day.